Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. Is Newcastle's dream season already over? And what is Newcastle's dream season? Because to be honest, some Newcastle fans are just happy to be in the top six. And for a team that's only lost 2 games in the Premier League all season, how can that season be in tatters? Well, I'll tell you for why. Because Newcastle, for me, looked nailed on for top 4 a few weeks ago. And when you look at the Premier League table now, which I'll get up on the screen for you now, it doesn't look so good. I think they're in trouble. You know, the Carabao Cup last week would have been a massive thing for Newcastle and their progression, and there is no doubt that Newcastle are a team on the up. They've got obviously their richest club in the world. They've got a huge fan base. They're going places, but this season they're probably ahead of schedule, and now reality is starting to bite. That top 4 place doesn't look too bad at the moment. When you look at their run-in, I just don't see how they're going to get back into that. But interested to see your thoughts, because there are big games this weekend, of course. Liverpool, Manchester United at Anfield has a huge impact on the top 4 race and potentially the title race if Manchester United were to win. But tomorrow we're doing a watch-along, Man City against Newcastle at 12:30. And whilst Man City Newcastle will never compete with Liverpool Manchester United, it's almost real heritage football against new money football, isn't it? That's not Newcastle and Man City's fault. But I actually think it's a big game because Man City need to win to keep the pressure on Arsenal, and Newcastle need to start putting some pressure on Spurs and keep looking behind at Liverpool. There is a big impact on the title race and the top 4 race, and this is where I think Newcastle, to be harsh, I think the top 4 dream is probably over, and I'll explain why. It's never over in this league, of course it's not. And I think the advantage Newcastle have got is points on the board and potentially those games in hand. But winning games in hand, I've said this all season. I said it with United when we had 2 games in hand. I'd rather have the points on the table. I'd rather be where Spurs are, 4 points ahead of Newcastle, with Newcastle having 2 games in hand, because, you know, I'd take the 4-point lead, even though Newcastle could get 6, because I'd go, try and get 6. In this season, if you get 6, fair play. We'll take the 4 points and you can have the 2 games in hand. And I think that's what it's like. That's the trouble that teams like Liverpool have got. You can have your games in hand and you've got points to close up, but the season is ridiculously difficult. You look at where Spurs are with 46 points, and you look at where Newcastle are with 42, and then you look at where the Liverpool are with a further game back. It is interesting in the sense that I think, look, Newcastle have got a game in hand on Liverpool, who are behind them, so there's an opportunity for Newcastle to, you know, open that gap up again. But I think at the moment it's between Tottenham and Liverpool is what I'm trying to get my words out to say, because I look at this league table here and I think I can't tell you how many points it's going to take to win the league, because when you're being hunted down by Man City, Arsenal might need 95. You just don't know. I think for 4th, 70 points is what I'd be aiming for this year. You cannot say that this is the hardest league we've had in years and the most competitive league we've had in years and then say it will take 75 points to get 4th. Normally it's around 70 points, and I think that's always, it's a bit like 40 points to stay up. 70 points should get you 4th this season. So from Newcastle's point of view, 30 points from your final 15 games. The problem Newcastle have got is, to get 70 points when you've got 41 points with 15 games to go, you've got to win 10 out of 15. I don't think Newcastle's form suggests that they're going to win 10 out of 15. I think Newcastle's form suggests that they probably won't lose any, but they'll probably only win 7 out of their next 15 games, and they'll probably draw 5. Well, what's that? 26 points, which would put them around 67 points, which might be enough for 4th, but might not be enough. And I think that's the problem. And people will say, oh, no, we'll win 10 games. Look at Newcastle's remaining games. They're not good games to have. They've got City away, obviously. We know that's coming up tomorrow. They've got to play Man United and Arsenal at St James's Park. So, you know, they might get draws, but you wouldn't expect them to win both of those. They've got to go to Chelsea, who, look, Chelsea are either going to be, you might beat them or they might finally click. They've got to go Brentford away, who don't lose at home. You've got Everton and West Ham away, who are both in a relegation battle. You wouldn't really fancy that. You've got Aston Villa away, who are much improved. You've got Leeds away, which is, again, a relegation battle. So, look, Newcastle will no doubt win some of those games, but there's what, 3, 6, 7, 8, there's 9. I've just named 9 of their games out of their last 16 games they've got, where you go, That might be difficult. So my feeling at the moment is that I don't think Newcastle are going to get top four, and I'm almost surprised by that, because I felt that if you'd asked me in January, I'd have said, yeah, I think they will. And I suppose they've got to try and get that early season form back, because they've got the players. I thought they were very good against Man United in the cup final, but they lacked that killer instinct. They lacked that experience, which is completely understandable, because they're not going to have it. That, you know, it's new. It's a new experience for them. But this top four race, when you're fighting teams trying to stay up and you're fighting teams who want top four, I think it might be a step too far for Newcastle this season. And that's really where I wanted to, aim this video. We'll have Newcastle fans watching who get very sensitive. I've seen it after we beat them on Sunday. And you get, obviously, other rivals who can speak about it. I think just take a step back and go, if Newcastle finish 5th or 6th, that's a really good season. It is a good season. And I speak to some Newcastle fans and they're like, we're just enjoying it. And I suppose that's very difficult for Man United fans, Liverpool fans, Arsenal fans, and other top 6 clubs, Spurs, etc., to understand, because for us it's disappointing if you finish 5th or 6th when you've been in a top 4 race, because you want to be in the top 4. Newcastle know they're going to be in those races in the future because of the wealth they've got, but this season, they were fighting relegation last year. I think they ended up around the mid-table. This season in the top 6, next season in the top 4. It's not failure for Newcastle. I just think the dream of this year of maybe winning a trophy and getting into top 4, which would have put them ahead of schedule, is probably over. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for the rest of football, because the minute Newcastle get top 4, the landscape changes. It was like Man City. The minute Man City got Champions League football in their early days, that's when you can go, we want this player that Liverpool want, we want this player that Man United want, because we've got the wealth and we've got Champions League football and we've got a massive fan base and we've got a massive ground. Come to Newcastle. It's a game changer the minute Newcastle get top 4. So look, it might not be a bad thing for United fans and Arsenal fans and Spurs fans and Liverpool fans that that Newcastle don't join the super wealthy clubs in the Champions League, because I don't think Newcastle will drop out once they hit the Champions League. It's going to be a massive few weeks. I think this season is multi-layered, as I've said many times. It's a fantastic season in the Premier League. And it's not impossible for Newcastle to get into top 4, but I just think that it's starting to slip away. The other angle is, how many points are Spurs going to get? They might have 45 points at the moment, but are Spurs going to get another 25 from what they've got left? Liverpool for me are the threat for top 4. I've always said Liverpool will get top 4. I've got a bet with Ben Foster. I keep saying it. Liverpool will get top 4. Even if United beat them on Sunday, which I think we can, and I think we will, to be honest. If they beat United on Sunday, they'll definitely get top 4, by the way. But if we beat them, I still think they'll get top 4, because when I look at Spurs and I look at Liverpool and I look at Newcastle, I think 10 wins, 70 points will get you 4th place. I've just gone through Newcastle's fixtures. I think it's a big ask. I've just gone through Spurs fixtures before I started, and I didn't even need to, because you can't predict Spurs. They're Spurs. I looked at Liverpool's fixtures and I went, they've got players coming back. They've stopped conceding goals. They're going to be out of the Champions League very, very soon. They know how to go and win 6-7 games in a row. I think Liverpool are the threat for top 4 no matter what happens against United on Sunday. And I think they will get top 4 and push Spurs and Newcastle out for this year. But get your comments in below. What are your thoughts? Who's getting that 4th place with Man United, Man City and Arsenal? And what sort of season is this for Newcastle? I still think it's a really good one, but as the title says, I think it's over in relation to the dream season that they potentially were going to have a few weeks ago, where they're in a final and they're in the top 4. I just think this season is starting to catch up with them. But you know what? Great thing about this season is so unpredictable. And if Newcastle can get something at the Etihad, beat United at the start of April, get something against Arsenal, suddenly they've got 5 or 6 points there that they wouldn't have expected, and then you go and win the games you would expect to win. You go away to a Leeds or a West Ham or Everton and you win a couple of those, even though it's a relegation battle. Suddenly that 70 points is what Eddie Howe's got to be thinking about. It's going to be, one thing's for sure, it's going to be fascinating to watch, and I'm here to enjoy it. I hope you are as well. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe.